Hi everyone! So I have a couple days off of work, so I thought I wanted to do like a sewing challenge kind of thing, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I'm gonna do like a random pattern grab kind of thing. So the way that I'm thinking this is gonna work is I have these little percentage dies right here. So I'm gonna roll these a couple times and I'm gonna get a couple of random pattern numbers. Then I'm gonna go to Joann's, and whatever company has a sale for like 99 or $1.99 patterns, I'm gonna go there and I'm going to just randomly pick those, a couple of the patterns. So I'm gonna roll for probably about 4 or 5 different pattern numbers, just in case I get one that's like for menswear or for a children's costume or requires like 16 yards of fabric. So something like that. So I'm gonna get to rolling, and then I'm gonna go ahead and go to Joann's and see what happens. All right, so I'm back from my trip to Joann's. The pattern I wound up getting stuck with was Butterick 5561. So most of the numbers that I rolled don't actually exist as patterns. Either that or the store just didn't have them in stock. So I had one roll that was just 0561, so I just picked 5561 because that's where Butterick seemed to start. So I have that shirt pattern, and then this is the fabric I wound up getting with it. I forgot exactly what it is, but it's light, it's airy. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this in the wash and get to working. Hi everyone, so I'm on day 2. So while my iron is heating up so that I can go ahead and iron this fabric now that it's all nice and dried, I just wanted to pop in, say hello, check in, and also something really cool happened to me today. So a couple weeks ago, I went to Joann's and I bought a pattern from Vintage Vogue, and the nice lady Cindy, who is checking me out, asked me, hey, if you had a bunch of vintage patterns, would you actually use them? And I said, yeah, probably. And so she actually gave me a bunch of vintage patterns. So a lot of them are Vogue and very easy. Vogue, I haven't actually gone through and looked through most of them yet, but actually they look to be more like 70s and 80s, which actually works out really, really well for me because we're about to start working on 9 to 5 the musical. So I probably could use some of these patterns. So, you know, that just goes to show you, always be polite to really everyone you meet, because you never know what's going to happen. So I'm going to get this fabric ironed real quick, and then I'll lay everything out with the patterns. So here's a better view of the fabric that I wound up getting. I'm not entirely sure why I need 2 yards of fabric for this one shirt, but that's what the pattern said to get, so I'm just going to trust it. So next I'm going to go through the pattern itself and find all of the pieces I need for the D shirt, because I think that's the one that I'm going to make. And then I'll pin everything and cut it out. I understand now why I need 2 yards of fabric. So piece 2 over here gets cut on the fold, and then piece 4 over here you need 2. So those are going to be cut with the fabric folded over as normal, but piece 1 and piece 7 you only need 1 of, so I'm going to have to unfold the fabric and then just cut out the 1 of each piece. So I see now why I need the 2 yards of fabric. I don't know, I feel like this could have been done a little bit better with the space saving, but because of that one pleat and like a gather at the top, I kind of see where they would want to do it like this, but like this whole section of fabric right here, that's a lot of fabric that's basically gonna get wasted. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I've already committed to this project, so I'll just keep going. So I have my pattern pieces all cut out. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on this sleeve, just because it's really straightforward. The only thing that's really special about this sleeve is there's a dart in it, so I'm just going to fold these darts and stitch those down just as a normal straight stitch, and then I'm going to assemble the sleeve like so, but this time I'm going to use a French seam because this shirt isn't lined, and the fabric didn't fray too much in the wash, but it did fray a little bit. And even though I honestly don't see myself ever actually wearing this shirt, you never know, and it might get some use, so I am going to take the care and do the French seams to hide all of the raw edges. So once I do that, then I'm going to work on the front. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit because I can't I just honestly don't feel like setting up my tripod, and I don't know if I'm gonna have a good angle to do it with. Actually, let me maybe do this on the floor. That might be. Alright, so hopefully I'm not blocking anything and you're going to be able to see what I'm doing. So for this front, I need to pleat. So from what it looks like in the directions, I'll just read the directions. It says, to make pleat in front, one on outside, crease along line of small circles. Bring creased to line of large circles. Baste across upper edge. Alright, so it seems like I would have to crease here. So I think what I have to do is I have to fold it under, so like this part goes under this part, and crease here, and then bring this crease over here. So I think maybe I can be lazy and be bad and do this in one step. So basically what would happen is I would do this and bring this over here and hold that still, hopefully, so I can slide the pattern out from underneath. And that seems like that's right. Sure, let's go with that. Where? So it's probably hard to tell because of the fold, but I'm going to press this, and then I think I'm supposed to do like a really tiny line of stitching, like right here, just a tiny bit. Yeah, I think that's what I'm supposed to do. So I'm just gonna sew maybe 2 inches down here just to keep this crease. And then I'm supposed to baste along this upper edge. So I'm gonna get that done and then report back. Okay, so while my iron is heating up again, which, side note, the way my room is wired, so the top plug of this outlet actually connects to this wall switch. So that actually makes it super convenient because I can just leave my iron plugged in and then just flip the switch on and off. So what I'm gonna do now is, it said to press the dart over to one side, so I'm going to do that. I'm also going to press this French seam flat, and while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and do a rolled hem on the sleeve. So I'm going to turn this up probably by 1/4 of an inch, if that, and then depending on how it holds the press, honestly, I'm either going to sew through it and then fold it up again, or just fold it up a second time and be lazy and not sew through it. So after that, I'm going to work back on this top section. So I messed up a little bit. So originally I was just supposed to really baste from this section to this section, but I basted throughout the entire thing. So honestly, since this didn't turn out as well as I hoped, I'm probably going to rip through all of this and take it out and redo it. So it also says I need to gather between the 2 large circles, which works out to be about here and here. It doesn't say what to gather it down to. I have no idea like how small I'm supposed to make it. I'm sure it's really just to add like a textural thing, but I have absolutely no idea how this is going to work out. I wish they would have included some sort of measurement in there. So I'm going to take a look at piece number 7, which is over here in this pattern, to see if I can get a little bit of guidance to see how this is supposed to work out exactly. So I'm just going to iron everything real quick and then redo this base stitching. So I said I was going to zoom in on this pleat. So I have the pleat sewn. It's black thread on black fabric, so I apologize, it's really hard to see. But I sewed this pleat not down to the fabric, but just sewed it to make sort of like a pin tuck, but not really. So that's in place. So I'm gonna fix all of the things that I talked about, and then... Alright, so my sleeves are nice and rolled, so they have their hem. It looks kind of like a mess. I think this thread might have just been too thick for this material. I don't really know. I'm not going to worry about it too much. So one thing that I did notice is that since these are cap sleeves and they have really, really tiny sleeves, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get a French seam or another rolled hem up here. So I think what I'm gonna do, so this would be my first time doing it, I think I'm gonna try to make bias binding from some of the leftover material. Hopefully I have enough that I'm gonna be able to do that. So I'm going to try to do that so that way I can just bind the armholes all the way around so that they won't fray. Yeah, again, I don't know if I'm actually going to wear this shirt regularly. Probably not, because it's not really a style of something I would wear. But this way I can, you know, at least try to make bias tape. I don't know how much fabric I'm actually going to be able to work with, because I have very narrow strips, and if it's going to take me a lot of time, I'd rather not do that and then use the scraps for something else. So I'm going to take a look at the material I have left and see what happens. So moving on from there, I went ahead and I took out the stitches of this top section. So originally I just I loosened the stitches up here and then left these in and then tried to gather it, but I was having trouble actually getting it together. So I went ahead and I just basted this by hand because I think it's easier. So I'm not gonna gather it yet until I get the next step done and I try to put the cowl on. So the next step is to just take the back section and then sew it to the front up the sides. I really think that's super straightforward, so I'm not really gonna show that. So hopefully the next step that I'm gonna be showing you is the cowl. Also might be the sleeves, but again, that should be pretty straightforward, generic sleeve attachment, so I'm not gonna worry about it too much. So I'm reading the directions, and I'm supposed to do the sleeve hem after I attach the sleeve, which does kind of make sense. What doesn't make sense is that how it wants me to baste the sleeve on and then immediately turn around and sew it on again. That bit, admittedly, does not make sense to me. I also looked through my fabric. I don't think I have enough to feasibly make some bias binding. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna attach the sleeve and then pink the edges. I think that might work really as best as I can do right now. Also, point out the top of the sleeve is not attached, so it's just this kind of U shape. So I'm going to get that attached and then come back to figure out what I'm doing for the neck. So this is what I have so far. I promise I'm wearing pants. This is just much, much longer than I thought it was going to be. So the pattern has 2 levels that you can cut it at, and I went for the longer one because, you know, I have a long torso, and for me that makes sense to go for the longer length because I always have to wind up adding length. And instead I made just a really short mini dress. So I'm going to work on the neckline, but I thought I'd show you what I have so far. Yep. Alright, so the directions say to stay stitch the neck edge. I'm not going to do that because I'm trash and I'm lazy. Stitch ends of collar together at center back, so it's going to be this seam over here. Not quite sure how that wound up so uneven when I cut it out, but it did, so I'm going to work with that. So I'm going to stitch here, and then it says, with right sides together, pin collar to neck edge, matching symbols and triangles to shoulder darts. So I'm gonna have to refer back to this main pattern to see all the symbols and triangles. Clipping top neck, blah blah blah. Adjust gathers, baste, stitch, trim, press seam toward collar. So yeah, since this is going to get turned over and folded under itself, I'm not going to worry about French seaming that because it's going to get hidden inside itself. And then after that, it says turn collar to inside along fold line. So I'm going to take a wild guess and say this is the fold line, so I'm just going to fold it in half. Press, slip stitch, pressed edge over seam. I'm probably going to be lazy and just sew that on by machine and basically treat this as like a giant bias binding. So yeah, that's how I pretty much feel about this shirt. So here's the front. The pattern makes it kind of hard to see the pleat here, which was the main focus of this pattern. So this is incredibly unflattering. I don't like it one bit. I love the fabric of it, and I really want to go back and get more of this fabric to make a different dress that I was originally going to make in a different fabric, that I have fabric for that. So the dress I'm talking about is actually this vintage Vogue design. So I think if I go back and get this same fabric for this, I think it'll look really nice, because I like the fabric. It's really light, but it's not like super see-through. It feels like it breathes decently too. My only complaint about the fabric is that it has to be line dried, so I just have to hang it up if I ever decide to wash it. Yeah, not a huge fan of this pattern. Super unflattering, because like here's my waist right here, and here's my other half of the waist. I feel like this would be a really good maternity top, because it's like kind of fitted nicely up here, and then it can like really like poof out. So I feel like this would be a pretty good maternity top, and like maybe if I had a white belt or something, or like if I had a belt for it and then extended it by another like 6 or 7 inches, it might be a really cute like dress. Not a huge fan of this. Also, the sleeves wound up being really enormous, so for my measurements, it told me to make a size 14, which patterns are always like really big compared to what you actually should make. So I probably should have made it closer to the 8 or the 10. So there's like a whole lot of extra fabric here. I just feel really, I just feel so sexy right now. Like I need to go hit the clubs. Like right now I'm gonna have to beat the boys off of me with a stick. Like, yeah. Also, so I'm gonna take this off and lay it out flat so that I can talk about what I did and didn't like about the pattern itself. Also, there's sort of a back view. You might be able to see. It's just, I have a lot of feelings about this. So I have feelings about the pattern. I don't think this was a like particularly well-made pattern, but I also don't think this is one that they really, let me get the pattern. I really don't think this is one that they anticipated being a super popular pattern that a lot of people would use. Yeah, so basically the issue that I have with the pattern itself is in the neckline. So this is actually really hard to get on and off my head. It's not difficult, but it's snug. And I know that proportion to my body, I have a very small head. So anybody with like a normal size or a larger head will definitely have problems getting this on and off, which was really weird. And I think it's the neckline itself and not the cowl, because I actually had to gather the cowl down to match the neckline. So when they do the pattern matching in the cowl, they tell you to match the seams. So there's like a front seam here for the sleeve, and then there's another seam back here. So you can kind of see this here. This is a really hard fabric to kind of show details on, I'm sorry. So it says to match up the seams, so I did that, and then I waited until that point to gather down the front, which is I think what you really have to do instead of doing it here in step 1, because in step 1, like, you have no idea how small you need to gather it down to, so you really need to wait until you're installing the collar to be able to really do it properly. And then in the back, I had to gather down, maybe you can see it. So here, it's hard to see because it's, again, black on black, but I did have to kind of make tiny pleats to gather down this cowl to match the neckline, which was kind of really frustrating because it means it's not going to sit nice and flat and folded over the way that it should. So it's just going to kind of bunch up a lot. I guess one way that I could try to fix that would be to press this, which I should have done, but I'm just honestly so over this shirt that I'm not gonna do that. So if I wanted to fix that, I could press this and then do another really, really tiny line of stitching here to keep that super crisp. But like I said, I honestly do not see myself ever wearing this shirt out. Not even, I would say in public, but also like not even in the comfort of my home when I am the only person home. This is just not flattering. Up here, I do like the detail. I like the gathered and I like the pleat. And I feel like maybe if this was nipped in at the waist a little bit or worn with a belt or made longer into a dress and then worn with a belt, it could be really cute. Or also I feel like this would be a really good maternity top since it is nice and gathered and fitted up here, but super loose and flowy and a lot of extra fabric down here. But that's not a problem that I have or will have for a very, very, very long time. So this shirt is probably going to be recycled, or the fabric is probably going to be recycled into something else, because I do really, really like this print. It's absolutely beautiful. It's not quite as neon as the camera's showing it right now, but it's still bright, and I love the flowers on it. So yeah, not a super big fan of this pattern. Alright, so I don't think there's really anything else I want to say about this. Even though I'm not happy with how the final product turned out, even though I don't think I will ever wear this, and I kind of knew that going into it when I picked the pattern, this was still something really fun to do. I would have never made a shirt like this otherwise, and I think it's really fun to kind of try new things that you never would have normally, because, you know, maybe I would have really liked this shirt. It just didn't work out that way. So the whole thing, this thing really only cost me probably around 20 bucks. This fabric wound up being, because I had a coupon, so the fabric wound up being about, so it was $12.99 a yard and then it was 30% off at Joann's, so I can't math off the top of my head. I'll probably enter it somewhere around here on the screen. So that probably worked out to about 20 bucks, and then the pattern was $1.99. I also bought some thread, but I have a lot of black thread, so I didn't wind up using that. All in all, you know, I think this was a pleasant way to spend an afternoon. So this took me, I started at about 1 o'clock, and it's probably about 5:15 now. So this really didn't take me that long, and that's also with, I stopped a bunch of times to go talk to my roommates, to go just walk around the house, walk away for a second, go take care of the cat. Also, it took me a while to physically walk around my room because I took a dance class for the first time in a long time yesterday, and I am in so much pain. So I'm gonna go call this a day, clean everything up, and yeah, if there's any other pattern that you really, really want to see me try and make, or just, you know, make a fool out of myself because I have no idea what I'm doing, let me know. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe. That's what people say on YouTube, right? So yeah, hopefully I will come back at you pretty soon with another what to do, what not to do pattern sewing thing.